Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, or you're listening to us via podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, you name it. We are doing everything possible to make sure you have an opportunity to be a part of Coffee with Craig. So please make it a point to like and share this program so that your friends can join in the conversation. We talk a lot about firearms, politics, culture, media, you name it, trying to bring to them a little bit of what I like to call uncommon sense. We call it uncommon, well, because common sense just isn't that common anymore. So once again, please remember to like and share and subscribe. Also, I want to remind you, go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. All of the very, the best, the coolest of T-shirts are available for you there in order to support the Second Amendment. Know that every penny that you spend goes right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. That's fpcgear.com. Encourage your friends to shop there. Now, where we generally do not or are encouraging you to not encourage your friends to shop, well, that would be Walmart and Dick's. Most recently in the news, I'm sure you guys have heard that they are back in the news, not for good reasons, mind you. Now, we all know, back after the Parkland shooting took place back in March, the Walmart and Dick's both decided that, they were going to not be pro-gun. Not necessarily say that they were anymore. I mean, the truth is that both had already stopped selling semi-automatic, what they call assault style, but basically semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15. They had already stopped selling them a few years ago. But now they decided that not only for Dick's, not only were they going to take them out of their other store, which is Field and Stream, but they were also not going to sell any firearms to anyone or ammunition, to anyone under the age of 21. Now, we've talked about this. Various different municipalities or governments are passing laws restricting the constitutionally enumerated right of adults who happen to be under the age of 21, but they are still legally adults. They are legally culpable and legally responsible for the decisions that they make, both criminally and civilly. They have the right to vote. If they can be drafted into military service and sent across the seas and handed a firearm to defend our country. But yet, for some reason, some municipalities, and apparently Walmart and Dick's, don't think that they should have that very same right to defend themselves at home. Well, needless to say, they were taken to court. Now, a couple of folks have actually filed suit, but one in particular is actually standing out because, well, there was just a recent ruling. So let me tell you the story of Miss Hannah Brumbles. She's 18 years old. She's from Deer Island in Oregon. That is an unincorporated Columbia County. Now, she filed a complaint after Walmart said they wouldn't sell her a firearm. Now, she is an avid shooter. She has been raised to know how to utilize a firearm, has respect for firearms. But for some reason, for no reason at all, other than her age, she was discriminated against. So she decided to file a complaint. Now, the complaint was filed with the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries. Now, I know you're wondering, you're like, well, but we pass laws that prevent people under 21 from doing various different things, and like, drinking alcohol. Well, as you know, drinking alcohol is not a constitutionally enumerated right. And the other thing is that when a lot of people think of age discrimination, they think of people not allowing people to do things because they're too old. But in some states, in fact, 19 states, including the state of Oregon, age discrimination can begin as early as 18 years old. Meaning, once you are a legal adult, you cannot be discriminated against simply because of your age. And yet, in this particular case, that is exactly what happened. See, there's this belief that, well, because you're under the age of 21, that, well, you're not old enough or mature enough to be able to own a firearm. And it was largely because there was one mass shooting that where the individual purchased the firearm legally. As a 19-year-old, the individual purchased the firearm legally, and then went and did what he did. So, but when you look at the numbers, what the numbers will tell you is that gun crime that largely is committed by those under the age of 18 overwhelmingly is gang and drug related. And I know people get mad when I keep pointing that out, but I have to keep pointing it out. Because once again, we're not talking about just random people. We're not talking about random mass shootings by individuals under the age of 21. We're talking about individuals who have an interest, an outside thing that is influencing their desire to inflict violence. In fact, if you would deal with that, you would probably reduce more gun violence than trying to take guns out of the hands of those who are under the age of 21. Because, now let's go back and look at some of the other statistics. One of the other statistics will tell you is that largely those firearms, in fact, over 90% of them, are not the property of the individual who has them. Let me clarify. The person who used it was not the person who owned it. The person who's the legal registered owner of the firearm, meaning that they are largely stolen. So in other words, why are you taking away the rights of individuals to legally purchase and legally own a firearm when individuals under the age of 21 are not going out in mass or even in significant numbers to inflict violence with the firearms that they legally own and possess? Well, because age, because moms demand action said they should, because some high school students who don't have the right to keep and bear arms, who are too young to be able to have the right to keep and bear arms, and therefore don't respect anyone else's right to be able to keep and bear arms, have decided that they want to tell us how the rest of us should be able to live our lives. That's the reason why. And according to the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, well, that's not going to be enough. That's not quite good enough because they have come back with a ruling that, yes, in fact, Walmart has discriminated against this young lady and therefore should pay the price. Now, as far as I know so far, a fine has not been issued yet, but they're asking for the amount of $137,000, which is in essence the amount that the bakers were required to pay because when they discriminated against the same-sex couple who wanted them to make a wedding cake. Now, why is that significant? And once again, not getting into the issue of same-sex marriage, but here's why it's important. It's because we have decided as a society that there are some people you will not discriminate against. You will not against someone based on their gender orientation. You will not discriminate against somebody based on their sexual orientation. You will not discriminate against somebody based on their race unless they are of the wrong race. If you're white, you can be discriminated against. Sorry to tell you all that in case you didn't know, but apparently in the law, that's how they treat it. Of course, also apparently in the law, you're allowed to be discriminated against if you're Christian. So, for those of you who are white Christian and happen to be a straight white Christian male, well, hey, I don't know what to tell you. Apparently, according to our laws, it's okay to discriminate against you. But we figured that, but I guess that's my thing. That's my point is that we've taken the idea of discrimination, and don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting up here saying that we ought to be discriminated against anybody. There are reasons why you put certain things in place, right? Why we have certain laws that have certain limitations. But at the very least, in this particular case, the statistics, the information, the data doesn't bear out a logical reason to allow someone under the age of 21 but over the age of 18. Adults under the age of 21, let me put it that way, there's nothing that should prohibit them from being able to own a firearm. But if we're going to go arbitrary, there's tons of different ways in which we could go. There was a study that showed that a large majority of the straw purchasers are women. So does that mean that we should not allow women to own firearms, to purchase or possess firearms? Or how about this? A large percentage of gun violence is committed by those of African American descent. Does that mean that we should prevent them from being able, or then prevent us from being able to own firearms? I mean, think about it. Hey, how about this? How about the fact that most of it occurs in certain areas, in certain communities? So maybe we should just prohibit people in those communities, in urban communities like Baltimore and Chicago and Oakland. Maybe we should prevent them from being able to own firearms. Well, the problem is that the laws in those communities largely almost do prevent you from being able to own or possess a firearm. They've made it so difficult and so expensive, and yet still hasn't made a difference. And yet now they want to pass laws that say if you are under the age of 21, if you're a legal adult under the age of 21, that you should lose your rights. Folks, I don't care if you don't care about gun rights at all. I really don't. But what you need to understand is this, is that if we allow them to take our right to keep and bear arms, our Second Amendment right, for an arbitrary reason, for a fake arbitrary reason, then they can take away any one of our rights for a fake and arbitrary reason. And all they have to do is make sure that it's an unpopular right. It is a group of people who are politically, in their eyes, insignificant. And that they can just claim, well, it'll just make us feel safer. Then that's all it takes. So, the right to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment, may not be a right that you care about now. But trust me, if they can take away that one, the one that defends all the others, folks, we are going to be in for a very, very, very hard time in the future. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing this video feed so that your friends can join in the conversation and know that the Firearms Policy Coalition is the home of the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.